Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And one of my subscribers has awared me that Athlean-X, aka Jeff Cavalier, has made a video talking about forced eccentrics and the value of eccentric reps in your training for inducing hypertrophy. So let me pull my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Work on skilling up my crafting a little bit and let's talk about this. And the reason I want to talk about this is that Jeff is a really big figure. He has credentials. He does work with pro athletes, but I think a lot of times Jeff markets stuff that he knows better than to do, that he knows is nonsense, purely because he knows it will sell. Right? He knows it will sell. And it is about marketing at a certain point. And he's been doing this numerous times, to where he'll have some really good sound information backed by science, backed by his own experience, and then he'll throw in BS sometimes. It's just a marketing point. And I think this is a case of that. And the fact of the matter is, if you're going to claim something is based on the science and then scientific studies don't actually support it, it's not really based on science. And all this eccentric training is essentially bro science. It's not science at all. I mean, I've looked at all the studies, and just because someone has credentials or experience or anything else doesn't mean that they're not above criticism. And that's kind of the problem we have when you have experts like Jeff out there who has credentials, is that people will accept that anything that he tries to sell you must be good and it's above criticism and above reproach. And in the case of stuff like this, it's just not. It's not. And I feel almost like he made this video to justify himself buying this machine that I think is pretty worthless. I mean, realistically, if we're going to talk about gaining strength and gaining size on any serious level, sitting around worried about cable isolation movements is probably the last thing you need to be worried about. That's finishing touch type of stuff. That's weak point training type of stuff. That's not primary size or strength. And again, he markets himself as a strength and conditioning coach and has athletes that he works with, but then it's always this silly bodybuilding fluff and pump that gets thrown in, like cable curls and, and stuff like that. And I'm not saying those things don't have their place, but in strength and conditioning, I mean, are we serious? And so you got to wonder sometimes. And I guess the reason I want to go there with this is that he said some things, and even someone asked me, hey, Jeff is saying that we're stronger on eccentric reps than we are on concentric reps. And yeah, that's true. That is based on science. He's right. We are. The problem is that we know that taking sets close to momentary muscle failure, getting within 1 rep of failure, not even necessarily going to failure, but getting within 1 rep of failure, we know can induce maximum hypertrophy. So let me ask you guys a question. If we know this, and study after study and study has confirmed this, do you really think that you need a stronger eccentric rep to get maximum muscle fiber recruitment? All right, here's what you need to think about it from that perspective. Okay, let's assume you're doing a, whatever, moderate weight concentric, that's lifting the weight, and then a heavier eccentric rep, right? Because you've got a machine helping or someone's assisting it. Do you really think that you will have stimulated more muscle fibers? No. Because if you take a set to positive failure, you've already recruited all the upper threshold motor units. You've exhausted them. There is nothing further to get. All this does is make you reach failure sooner, right? You're giving the equivalent effect of lifting a heavier weight. So in other words, if you lift 50 pounds up and then have 100 pounds down, you're probably going to hit failure with about the same amount of reps that you would have done with 70 pounds, 75 pounds had you just done a normal set. Just because you're stronger at lowering doesn't mean that you're going to recruit more muscle fibers. Doesn't mean you're going to recruit more muscle fibers. It doesn't. You're still going to be limited by what's available, what you can recruit. And all that's going to do is cut down the number of reps that you do with a given weight, right? That's all it's going to do. And if you've hit positive failure with a given weight, do you really think just doing some negatives and having someone help you and doing the negatives is going to help you further? No. You're just recruiting muscle fibers that were already used and exhausted. You're already done. You're just basically just doing less work now. You would have been better off just resting and doing another set if you really wanted to re-hit those muscle fibers again to get additional growth and stimulation. This isn't based on science. This isn't even based on common sense. This is based upon bro myths and silly bodybuilder fluff and pump. The reality is, when we've looked at it, eccentric reps aren't even necessary for growth. They can be valuable tools, but they're just another tool in the toolbox. That's all they are. That's all that they are. Maximal muscle growth has actually been found in labs can be done with doing concentric only training, doing eccentric only training, doing combined training, which is what most of us are doing, right? All three of those have been found to be able to reach nearly maximal muscle growth as long as volume and tension and workload are sufficient. That's what matters. That's what matters. The problem we also have is that what we've noted with this heavy eccentric training, it doesn't produce more muscle growth, but it produces more soreness. You guys see the problem there? He's basically now promoting a training style that isn't going to give you any more muscle growth. It's not going to give you more growth. And maybe he's saying, well, it'll help you break past the plateau. Well, periodizing or adjusting your training can help you break past the plateau without incorporating a training style that's going to make you more sore. We know that heavy eccentric based training causes additional muscle soreness. Why in the world would you want to stimulate additional soreness that doesn't cause additional adaptation? I mean, this is potentially crippling for an athlete or someone who has a busy life. Why would you want additional soreness? That's going to interfere with your ability to be an athlete. It's going to interfere with your ability to train and do other stuff. It's silly. It's pointless. And again, this is what the scientific literature shows. This has been studied for decades. Eccentric-based training doesn't produce more muscle growth. It doesn't. It produces more soreness with the same amount of growth. So at a certain point, you've got to look at that and say, why is this even being promoted? And the other thing I thought was interesting, he's saying, we're twice as strong on the eccentric. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe on a bicep curl. But when this has been studied with big exercises, and let's go back to the point, why are we talking about isolation type movements when we're talking about size and strength? Why are we even talking about this? Anybody out there getting big and strong by doing curls with a cable and flies? Right? Is that really how anyone thinks that you get really jacked or you get really strong? No, maybe if you use enough drugs. But for anybody else, it's not going to. And again, that's the problem with a lot of this. It's just fluff and pump. But when you start looking at eccentric training with big movements, that is absolutely not true. You're not even going to be close to double your strength. I'm telling you guys right now, if you bench 300 pounds, if you don't believe me, don't even try to do double your bench. Go get in a power rack where you can safely do it, and don't even go to 600. If you're a 300 bencher, you can bench 300 with good form on any day of the week, right? A regular training max, not even your true competition max. Go put 500 pounds on that bar and unrack it and see if you can lower it under control without it just dropping and maybe even ripping something before it hits the pins. You can't. Try the same thing on a squat. You're a 400-pound squatter. Put 800 pounds on the bar and see if you can lower it under control to the safeties. There is no way. If you're a 400-pound squatter, you're not even going to be able to do 700, let alone 800. You're not going to get anywhere near double. You want to know what your eccentric strength is? Usually about 20%. In some cases, up to 25% more. So in other words, if you're a 300-pound bencher, you can probably lower somewhere between a max of about 360 and in some cases up to about 375. You'll be able to lower it without it just dropping. And just because, again, you're just not strong enough to control the eccentric and lower it under control. Same thing with a squat. You're a 400-pound squatter, 480, maybe 500, you're going to be able to lower it under control. On a big movement, you're not going to be able to do any of that. So at the end of the day, all this stuff that they're talking about, this is realistically, this is just with little bitty fluff and pump exercises. And at the end of the day, fluff and pump exercises and curls and everything else are your finishers. Hell, you guys even see me doing cheat curls these days, right at the end of my workouts. But I've either done barbell rows, weighted pull-ups, other stuff beforehand, right? These are just finishers. That's all that they are. And to sit here and worry about silly shit like forced eccentrics and heavier eccentric reps on your fluff and pump movements, come on. I mean, what a waste of time. And again, it's not even based upon science. So I don't get where the science is coming into this other than he's got a machine now. With technology, he's got a machine. So therefore it's science, right? I guess because, yeah, there's a machine around it. So therefore, since a machine is built, there was science put into building that machine. But the training itself, it's not based on science. Science doesn't support this. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.